Today, I'm excited to introduce Cory Weeds, a saxophonist whose warm and expressive sound is deeply rooted in the jazz tradition. As the founder of Vancouver's iconic Cellar Jazz Club, a celebrated record label owner, and accomplished recording artist with over 20 albums, Cory has dedicated his life to championing jazz music. Whether on stage as a performer or behind the scenes, Cory is one of North America's most influential and tireless advocates for jazz. So, Cory, good to see you.
Good to be
Hap-
here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, happy early birthday. We were just talking before. It's your birthday tomorrow.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
So Cory, let's talk a little bit about how I discovered your music.
Sure.
So these days we can discover music just by going down a YouTube rabbit hole. One video leads to another, and then before you know it, we learn about an artist we didn't know about. So I was just happened to be watching videos of Harold Mayburn, the great jazz pianist, rest his soul, and came
Yeah.
across a video of you playing Mr. PC with him. And
Wow.
there was such a really nice conversation between the two of you. I just thought it really fit perfectly, your playing and his playing. So, talk to us a little bit about your relationship with Harold because he was a legend.
Yeah, I mean, I miss him. I don't know. I have this great picture of him somewhere in my office of him, his big hand up, and my daughter's hand is up against his. Anyways, he became, not only was he uh, a musical friend, became a personal friend and a family friend. And I met Harold. I mean, of course, I knew Harold. My introduction to Harold was through Wes Montgomery because my dad is a guitar player, and so there was a lot of Wes Montgomery. You're a guitar player, aren't you? Am I
I
right
am.
about that? Yeah. And so Wes Montgomery and was a big part of my life, and hence I heard about Harold Mayburn. But I actually came to Harold Mayburn through Eric Alexander, who was a big hero of mine and is also a dear friend. And I brought Harold to Vancouver with Eric the first time, and then I brought him again with Mike DeRubo. And I remember hearing Harold going, "Oh my God, I'll never be ready to." That's a lot going on there pianistically. And then I don't know what happened. Something changed. Harold and I started talking, and before I knew it, we had a gig set up with him here. I think at one point we were celebrating an anniversary at the club, the video that you are watching, Mr. PC. Anyways, it developed into this incredible friendship and mentorship. He spent some time, as I mentioned, with my family, a lot of time with my family, and he just became a real friend. Um, and I was lucky enough to make a lot of music with him, and I feel I'm kind of the generation. I mean, I'm 50. I'm guessing you're a little younger than me, but we're in a generation that still had and still has, although it's dwindling fast, access to those musicians. And I get scared sometimes for the younger generation of musicians who won't have that same kind of access, even if it's just to see them. I was lucky enough to meet them and play with them and sit in with them and get to know them. And so I hold that relationship with Harold very, very dear to my heart because that's a different generation. It's a different musician. When you hit the stage with Harold Mayburn, it was go time. Like the stage was a sacred place when you were on it with him, and it made you play maybe in a different way than you would normally play. And I mean, I could regale you with stories for hours and hours of being on the road with him and having fun and the stories he would tell us and the adventures we went on. But I hold that very dear to my heart. So
No, that's beautiful. When you're playing with Harold, he is a legend and he's such an iconic figure. In the moment, what's the difference you would say between like do you really feel it? Even though you might be playing with some amazing players who are more from your generation, but there's something just a little bit different, isn't there, when you're with him?
there is, and I think the key is to notice it, be aware of it, and then let it go.
Yeah. No,
And
no,
then it just, because it's not, it's about making music and about, about communicating something to an audience. It's not about, that's all it's about. So I had to force myself a couple times to just be like, wow, that's Harold Mabern playing the intro to Ricotta Bossa Nova from Hank Mobley's Dippin'. Like, there it is. Like,
Yeah,
oh
no,
my God, like, that's the guy.
that's
But
so cool.
if you get too caught up in that, I think you do yourself a disservice as what you're contributing to to the whole thing.
Definitely.
So
I
yeah,
agree. So I've been doing these interviews and I'm talking a lot about performing with so many incredible players. Everyone's got their take on it. Some people say it's not a challenge. Some people say they still get nervous. Some people say the
uh,
most challenging thing could be just adapting to the sound or being in your own head. When let's just say all the factors are right. Let's say you're with your favorite musicians, even so, and you're in a room you know really well. What do you think the most challenging thing about playing this music is going to be on that concert?
I mean, for me, it's I call him the intruder, and I've done a lot of work with that. The intruder that sits right here, and I think everybody has it. I think that it presents itself in different ways. For me, it's an intruder that's my own voice that sits right here, that just tells me I'm not good enough. And what I'm playing is not, it's not, everybody knows that you're a fraud. And, so it's this self talk that's there. So that's my biggest challenge ever. And I've worked really hard at trying to deal with that intruder. And I have some tools, which I'm happy to share or not share, in terms of how I deal with that. But I think for me, that's the biggest one, is that intruder, that negative self-talk that tells me all sorts of things. And at the end of the day, I can sit here and talk to you. I mean, I'm looking at this great quote from a friend of mine, that said, there's a great quote from Jerry Begonzi, and the quote is, "It's none of my business what anyone else thinks of my playing. Better yet, it's none of my business what I think of my playing." And it's very true. And I read that every day in my office, and it's like how to shut down that external noise and just be musical. Like, there's so many facets of playing this music. At the end of the day, it's like, are you being musical? Are you contributing to the music? And the answer is, generally for me, yes. I mean, I did a concert with Bill Charlap yesterday, 2 days ago, a duo concert, and it was the most exhilarating and most terrifying hour and a half of my life. It was amazing. And it's like, I had that intruder there, and he was there. And it was just like, just ignore him, man. Just walk him out, grab his hand and walk him out the door, and just focus on contributing to the music. And we played a beautiful concert. I came away from it not loving myself, and I came away from it not hating myself. I feel like I played music. I got dozens of emails the next day, one of which was from Bill saying what a great time they had and how incredible it was. It's like, well, then it doesn't really matter what I think. Like, it doesn't matter. I did my job, and we're musicians and we have a job to do. Like, we're entertaining people, and I did my job. So it's really none of my business what I think of my own playing. It was, so I'm learning that it's okay to be excited and it's okay to be down, but it's much better just to be like, just a gig, man. Like, I played well, I had fun, I had a great time, and I have trouble as a person being here. You know, I live in the highs and I live in the lows. So one minute I'm going to conquer the world and I'm taking over, and the next minute I'm going to sell the label and all my saxophones, and I'm just going to get a job at Best Buy because I'm done. And that's one of the reasons I'm able to do all the things I do, is because I do this. I'm not an even keel. I'm getting better at it. But I'm realizing playing music, just keep an even keel, man. You're gonna have good gigs, you're gonna have bad gigs, you're gonna feel great, you're not gonna feel great. You have external things going on. I mean, I think as musicians, we all have external things going on, but if you take my life, like, I don't think people realize how difficult it is for me to get into a space where I can only think about playing the saxophone. And case in point was the concert with Charlap. It's at a house. It's at my friend's house. I organized the catering, had to make sure the piano was tuned. when we walk in, everybody's like, "Oh, Cory, oh, Cory, oh, Cory, oh, Cory, how's it going?" You know, blah blah blah. I had CDs that people had ordered from the website that I was delivering personally, and by the time I get to the stage to play, I'm exhausted. I'm like, "Oh my God, like how, my kids are at home by themselves because their mom is gone." So it's all of these things. At the end of the day, it's no excuse. You just try to like just just play and contribute to the music and
No,
not don't worry.
I love how
you
honest
know
you're being about it. It's so refreshing to hear that
Yeah,
because
I like
that
talking to people about it because I'm not looking for compliments. I want to know, how do you deal with it? And what I'm
well,
finding is you can talk to Eric Alexander or you can talk to Grant Stewart or Ralph Moore. I just had coffee with Ralph Moore and it's the same thing where we all have this struggle.
well, and I did notice that when I was doing my due diligence, that there was a video of you on YouTube speaking openly about it as someone who's had, stage fright countless times and had moments throughout performances when everything
Sure.
is going right, that you refer to them as that on the shoulder, that those thoughts you might have, and to rise above it
Yeah.
is you have to also give yourself credit for just pushing through, because some people who deal with that early on, they just can't, you know what I mean? There's obviously
Yep.
something within them that says, I love this art form that much, I love playing that much, and that's what wins over the anxiety. When you have those moments, for instance, on stage, or whether right before, when I know you're saying there was a lot of factors at the concert, but how do you sort of center yourself? Do you maybe do a little mindfulness, or you put your, like, anything you could share with us that would help you regain
Yeah,
that?
I mean, so I do two things. I do two things. I mean, there are a lot of things you can do. It sort of depends when you are going through this stuff. But first of all, I try to make sure that, I mean, I try to do all the things before the gig to make sure that I'm properly prepared. So I try to start with a tune, for example, that I'm really comfortable with. When that intruder comes, and this is all happening, of course, at rapid speed, but I feel the intruder, I hear him, I acknowledge him, I grab his hand, and I escort him to the back door. This is the imagery that I have in my brain. And I say, I'll probably see you again, probably soon. No problem. Grab your hand, take him out the back door. And that really works for me. And then once I've dealt with that, I try to take the saxophone out of my mouth. And I'm sure it's the same for guitar players and trumpet players. When we get nervous, we try to compensate by playing fast or playing a lot, or it becomes really heavy. And I'm trying to do the opposite. So, man, just take the saxophone out of your mouth and just hear for a minute what Bill Charlap is playing, and just get in there. And I think about things like, I think about Ben Webster with the Oscar Peterson trio, and I think about how much Ben says with so few notes. I'm like, he's not playing anything, but it's the most beautiful sounds ever. I'm like, man. So that's what I try to do. I try to back up and just take the horn of my mouth and breathe and just try to concentrate on playing one musical phrase. And then, okay, great. You played one. See if you can play another one. Oh, played another one. Oh, you kind of slipped up. That's okay. Bring it back, man. Like, just so the key for me is to try to simplify, really try to simplify. Um, and it seems to be working for me this week. Next next week it might not work. But this recent tool of acknowledging my intruder, grabbing my intruder's hand, and quietly escorting him out the back door has been something I've been working with for the last 2 weeks, and I've been extremely busy doing various things, recordings and playing, and it's been really successful for me.
It's
So
so funny you're talking, like, because you the first thing, I was on a gig about a week ago, and I had one beer on an empty stomach, and then, like, I was relaxed, but, like, then I started worrying. I'm like, oh, like, am I lightheaded and stuff? And then that started to, like, I'm like, oh shit, something's wrong. And
mhm.
I'm like, I can welcome this in, or he could just be there. So we all deal with it. And
Yeah.
anyone who's willing to talk about it, kudos to them. So I really appreciate what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
My pleasure.
Let's talk a little bit about your approach because you mentioned Ben Webster, we talked about Harold and stuff. We have these things that inspire our music that we when we sort of reflect on them. If you're an introspective person, can you share a time where a non-musical experience in your life really influenced your playing?
I mean, as you ask that question, nothing pops into my mind, but like a specific thing. But what I will say is that sometimes when you take lessons with some of these legendary people, and even not like even not legends, but like incredibly accomplished musicians, but not like Lou Donaldson or George Coleman, hanging out with them, like they don't always, when you go for lessons with those guys, it's not always like, okay, pull out your horn, like let's go, I'm going to show you this. They talk to you about life, and they talk to you about movies, and they talk to you about sports. And sometimes I find just being around those people, and then you take the people who aren't the like the legends of the music, like my friends, but still my mentors, like Eric and Mike Ladon and David Hazeltine, and I hang out with them, and I watch and I listen to the way they listen to music, what they get excited about, why they get excited, how they get excited. So I really, David Hazeltine is a great example. He's a very dear friend, and I feel like I learned so much from him away from the music, about the music, if that makes sense. So I can't really pinpoint something that happened that was a non-musical event that affected my playing in that way. But
Well,
I can't.
you're hanging out with these people on a personal level, and it's not just, oh, we're at a gig. Like you're just spending time with them. It's a
Yeah,
friendship.
and I think that informs their music. I mean, I think that really informs their music.
Yeah.
And I don't want to use specific examples to protect some of my friends, but some people are dealing with some shit, and then you hear them play and you're like, oh, wow, that's okay. So just learning how to manage your own emotions, and taking those emotions that you're feeling away from music and putting them into your music. So yeah, that's what I would say
Yeah,
about that.
and the problem is too I mean, I don't have to tell you, the jazz scene is so critical of each other. There's so many dichotomies, people who like really straight ahead stuff, some people who play free over the form, and I think that is something to be said too. There's so many dichotomies, and but just to realize that as well.
Yep, absolutely.
And you seem like the
Absolutely.
type of player who you don't discriminate. You're gonna take from everybody.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I have my thoughts about certain things, but yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I don't discriminate. I don't discriminate. I mean, you know, I might discriminate about certain kinds of music that I don't like, but
Well,
that
for
doesn't.
instance, I would feel like let's say you're playing with Joe Farnsworth, who you've played with before,
Yeah,
and like if you're gonna play with someone like, uh let's who comes to Ari Honig or Ralph Peter, you're like,
sure.
oh yeah, this is gonna be great.
Yeah. In that way, yeah, you're right. In that way, I definitely no, I don't discriminate. I mean, and I think as soon as you shut down the openness to learning something from somebody, I think you're doing yourself a huge disservice.
And you can learn something
Doesn't mean
from
you
those
have to
people who play
agree with
different.
it or you have to do it that way, but to not be open to hearing it is a problem.
Yeah, definitely. Let me ask you a question. You are involved in the jazz world in terms of this, running clubs and all that stuff, which has got to be, challenging on its own level.
Yep.
There's a lot of musicians who want to play and have opportunities and stuff. Do you think that by being in that business role is sort of you have become more, your expectations of yourself on the horn have kind of elevated from that, or is it just
Haha. That's a man. We need a whole separate interview for that. I
or
mean,
part two?
I would say for me that you started the interview talking about some of the mental things and the mental struggles. So my biggest thing that I deal with as a person and as a saxophonist is trying to separate out myself as a saxophonist versus trying to saxophone over here versus business guy, opportunity creator. So when I started my club in 2000, wow, 25 years ago almost, I had decided at that point that I was going to be a club owner. I was going to be a club owner promoter. My saxophone would be at the club and I would sit in and that would be the end of it. For obvious reasons, things completely didn't work out that way. My career kind of took off in ways that I couldn't have dreamt of, and I felt I spent a lot of time catching up. So I struggle with, am I getting these opportunities because I deserve it as a saxophone player, or am I getting these opportunities because I've created for myself and, I pay all my friends so they can't say no or they have to say yes because I'm paying them. Like there's that lives in me. And what I realized after is that's stupid. It's not worth spending time on those kinds of thoughts. I know I'm a good musician. I know that I'm not Eric Alexander, and I know that I'm not this person or this person, but it doesn't matter. But that's
I don't think you got to give yourself credit. You're tremendous on the instrument.
Thank you. And this is the thing around, believing that, because my world is so centered around creating opportunities for other people and for me. And it's so, I'm like, oh my God, like I haven't practiced for 2 months where I've actually like, okay, today I'm going to practice, so I struggle with that. And at the end of the day, well, two things. One, it never stops me from doing stuff. Like some people, they get wigged out and they think they're not good enough, so they don't do anything. I keep putting myself in high leverage situation after high leverage situation, and I'm getting better at learning the quote, I deserve to be here. I try to work as hard as I can between the opportunities. Sometimes I have the time and sometimes I don't. At the end of the day, I can get up there and I can hang with the people I need to hang with. I just did a recording with Jerry Weldon and I was freaked out about it. And I listened back to the tapes and I'm just like, I was able to listen and be like, yeah,
He's
you sound good,
too,
man. You sound right there. And I often listen to when I feel freaked out about stuff, I'll listen. I did a record called O Solo Mio, which was with I was playing alto and Eric Alexander was playing tenor. And I listened to that record and I'm like, yeah, man, I'm hanging. And it stops there. It's not, well, am I hanging really good? I mean, did I play as good? It's not about that. Are you hanging and are you contributing? That's all that matters. And so, but it's a lot of work to get to that point for me where I feel that way. Did I hang with Bill Charlap? I just played a duo concert with Bill and people loved it. So yeah, I'm hanging. Yeah. And Bill loved it and we were cool. And it's like, you're just making music, man. It's like,
I totally understand. It's like, I play, but I own a music school and I teach at a college, so I do a bunch of things to, keep the wheels in motion.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, one thing I just kind of remind myself is like, just if it feels good to do good things for people, give them opportunity. And that's that. It just feels good on a spiritual level.
And you learn, the other thing I'll say, and this is something I haven't thought about for a bit, but I thought about this a lot. You get to I always used to think to myself, like one of the intruder voices was when I'm playing with Hazeltine or when I'm playing with whoever, the intruder was saying, oh, this would sound so much better if it was, in the case of, let's say, Hazeltine, it would sound so much better if it was Eric Alexander. David Hazeltine's thinking this would sound so much better if it was Eric. And one thing that I realize is that I've worked hard. I've become a good player. And I have crossed the threshold of, like, can't play, can play. And when you cross the threshold of can play, it doesn't mean you can be lazy. But what it means is that David Hazeltine, and I can't speak for him, but David Hazeltine, I'm pretty sure is thinking, this guy can play. It's no longer about, can he play like this? Can he play this well? Can he play? It's not about that. And so he's up there just trying to make music. Can you give me 1 second, man? My doorbell is ringing. My dog is freaking out.
No, it's okay. Don't worry about it.
Give me 1 sec, because I want to finish that thought.
So this is the real time interview right now. We're hearing some great stuff from Cory. We're looking at his vinyl collection in the Zoom meeting. But yeah, this is some tremendous stuff we're hearing about. This is the real deal, raw, emotional stuff, artistic stuff that people deal with. Artists, not just jazz musicians, but everybody. It's, it's the day to day. You have to keep pushing forward. And for those who are listening to this interview, while Cory is checking the front door, we're getting some great stuff, and definitely be sure to explore his music in the internet world. That's
Hey
sort of
man, sorry.
no, it's okay. I gave a little. I kept the speech going, but no, keep
Yeah,
giving your
so
thought.
what I was saying is that, yeah, you reach this point where you can play. And once you reach that point, like I said, doesn't mean you stop practicing, but you don't have to worry about that anymore. Like I can play. I can play. End of story. So when I get together and play a concert with Bill Charlap, he's thinking, how can we make music together? It's not about, oh my God, I got to play with this guy who's not this guy or that guy. David Hazelton's not good. He's like, man, you sound great. Like, let's try. Oh man, so it's about you start collaborating with these people in a way that they're not thinking about that. And that was a really big realization for me, where it's like, oh, you can play, therefore you can just concentrate on making good music, your music, like the way you play. This is who I am. This is how I play.
Yeah, man, no, I totally get it, and not trying to, yeah, just to get, today's about you, but like the last 20 years, I've just been like all about comparing and competing with everybody, and and I'm letting go of that. It took two decades, but
Yeah, comparing is, I mean, it's never, because look, the fact of the matter is if you compare yourself, like Sam Dillon is a great tenor player in New York, said,
Mhm.
Weeds, you got to stop doing that because I'll tell you one thing, there's always John Coltrane. So you can compare yourself to whoever you want, and then you're like, oh, right, there's Train. And he's right. It's like, man, just, and I can tell you another funny story about Sam. Sam plays a lot of saxophone, man. And he was in Vancouver and he asked me to sit in and I said, "Ah, man, okay, I'll bring my horn." And I purposely forgot my horn. I purposely didn't bring it because I'm like, that's a lot. And he was really insulted and really hurt by that. And it dawned on me, I'm like, "Oh my God, like this guy is my friend. This wasn't about he knows how I play. He's my friend. He wanted to make music with me, and I denied him that because of my own stupid bullshit." And I was like, man, that's really weak. And sometimes I won't sit in because sitting in is a drag because you're cold and the band's all warmed up. So, but in that instance, he was reaching out as a friend to say, I'm in Vancouver for the first time. I'd really like to make music with you. And I denied him that. And that was a huge mistake. And I apologized to him profusely and was like, man, that's not cool what I did. So, we keep working on this stuff and you got to just learn to let go. You got to learn to let go of the good things and the good days and learn to let go of the bad days.
No, definitely. And Cory, this is great. But before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you one more question, if that's okay. Um, you said there's always John Coltrane, and that's I love Train, and just as everyone does, and that's one thing about inspiration. It's always there when we need it in these great recordings, XYZ. What do you go to when you need inspiration, or something that you listen to, it never fails to inspire you?
Well, I have a few things that I do. What I used to do, I haven't done this for a while. I used to go read, like when I needed business advice or inspiration, I would read the Blue Note book by Richard Cook.
Hmm.
I read that book probably 10 times. So that was something that really influenced or inspired my business because I think there's this thought that in the 50s and 60s when jazz would has a heyday that it was easy and it wasn't easy. Blue Note was an independent record label, just like I am. So that really helped me. Um, or I'll schedule a record date. If I need some inspiration, I want to go to New York and record at Rudy's yeah, let's do it. So that, as far as listening, I mean, lately, Ben Webster and Oscar Peterson trio. I've probably listened to that record 100 times in the last month and a half. Um, I'm a big Hank Mobley guy, so I'll put something on of his that I can really kind of relate to. I won't go and put something on that's so crazy good that I can't relate in a way. I'm like, I'll crank up my record player. I'm a big vinyl guy, as you can see. So I'll take out that Ben Webster record. I'll turn it up. I'll get my wife to work and my kids to school. Like, yeah, man, just make music, man. Or, other times, like Eric is a big hero of mine. I'll put something on of his and I'll find a line in there of his that I like. Be like, okay, I grab my horn. Lately I bought a soprano, not because I want to play soprano, but I can just leave it, it's just here set up. And I'll be like, oh, hey, a saxophone. I'll just pick it up and, play, and it's in B flat, like tenor. So, so just, yeah. Or sometimes I'll go for a walk and I'll be like, wow, it's a beautiful day, or my kids will make me smile, and so trying to get inspiration from all kinds of different places, because I'm realizing that, your daily life informs your music all
No,
the time.
definitely, definitely.
Things
And
that are going
Corey,
on.
where can people find you? Social media, all that stuff. Just
Yeah, so I'm a big Instagram guy. So at Cory Weeds.
that's how we
Um,
connected. So
yeah, the label is at Cellar Live. And my website is CoryWeeds.com, and the website is CellarLive.com.
no, beautiful.
The label website is
No,
CellarLive.com.
this is great, Corey. Thank you so much.
And my pleasure. I'm glad it worked out. I'm happy to talk anytime. I love talking about all this kind of stuff. So
Yeah, well, thanks.
my pleasure, man. Happy holidays to you.